morning.
Morning.
Fired up?
Yeah.
Well, I'm German, I'm monotone, I'm sick, so hang in there. All right. I've been asked to talk on coaching speed. Controversial topic, a lot of camps, factions, polemics. Let's be honest. How do we coach when we're under pressure or not sure? Well, we kind of go back to how we were coached, right? Like if we're not sure, well, how was I coached? Or how did my mentor coach people? Well, my track coach gave us 10 400 meters every day of the week, 5 days in a row, to start practice. I was a pole vaulter. It's like, so after you run 10 400s, you go, okay, now go work on your event. Oh, that didn't work too well. So I knew at a young age, coaching how I was coached wasn't probably the answer. So this lecture is pretty biased. It's based on a lot of research, on 45 years of coaching, experimenting, billions of failures. Like when we write a program or we try to cue an athlete, it's a hypothesis, right? Scientific method. In truth, in science, most hypotheses fail. Now, we read all the articles and the published journals and all of that, but how many billions didn't get published, or are those biased? So this is a little bit biased, but it's based on a lot of experience. I don't have a lot of letters behind my name. You know, some of these guys that go to these lectures, there's 2 slides on all their certificates and endorsements. I'm a graduate of the University School of Hard Knocks. Anybody else go to that school or currently in it? All right, so I think speed or coaching is kind of a balance of art and science. This guy didn't get the memo. So really it's a matrix. I'm a science guy, and one of the earliest interests in math for me was fractal geometry. Anybody ever heard of it? So it's seeing patterns in patterns. And I think a lost art in coaching today is the lack of pedagogy. Like in our day, we had PE schools and you were taught how to teach, and now it's kines and it's research. We don't teach people how to teach. So a big goal of this lecture is not so much the X's and O's, but how to apply it, how to problem solve. Because it is a puzzle. So it's kind of a 3-legged stool for me in coaching sprinting. So there's 3 major science factors. Motor learning. How do we acquire skill or change skill or eradicate bad behaviors? And usually we know if we're on the right path is if the movements improve in smoothness and accuracy. So we practice, maybe we drill for context, we have teaching progressions, we experiment, and ultimately we hope to come up with a new movement or a better movement or a more efficient movement. Biomechanics is a movement science, so we're taking laws and principles of physics and applying it to human performance, trying to get a little better understanding of what's going on. And we do this through modeling. Like we have a model that we teach to or that we work towards. We simulate various aspects of the model, and above all, we measure. And the third branch, and this is where there's a lot of gurus out there and great salesmen and whatnot. But you've got to, when you get exposed to an idea, you got to run it through these 3 realms. Kinesiology, or what I think they call today applied physiology. So can the human body actually do what they're telling you to do? So how many people in track have seen athletes now come out of the blocks and they're dragging their foot? It's called the foot drag. Anybody? It's epidemic. If you look at the EMG activity of the muscle system, when you drag a leg, you're changing the entire neurological dynamic of the human body from what it's trying to do. So it kind of fails a logic test there. So a lot of times, now the data is saying, hey, you get better ground contact the first couple steps, and you're not in the air as long. But what's that doing overall performance, and what's that doing to the efficiency of the movement? So I urge people, like when you get exposed to an idea, you're coming up with a program or a hypothesis, look through this grid. Is it biomechanically sound? Does it address motor learning principles? And kinesiologically, can you actually do it? So these three sciences are not one and the same. And there's a lot of experts out there that are great biomechanists, but they don't really understand motor behavior. And there's some people that do have a good grounding in motor behavior, solid in biomechanics, but what they're expounding upon doesn't make sense from a kinesiological standpoint. So, beware of confirmational bias. We all have it. This lecture is biased. I warned you up front. Figure out what are the biases of the people you're studying under or referring to in your mentors, in your network. Deep study. When you read articles, let's be honest, how do we read articles in social media now? Everybody's on Twitter and Instagram. You read the abstract, who wrote it, where they're working. You read the conclusion, you go, I got it, right? That's not deep study. Like, look at the data sets. Ask questions. Why didn't they have these data sets in there? Why are they inferring this from that? Is that the only correlate here? Get in arguments about p-scores. Deep study. Diverse practitioners and projects. So I'm blessed. I work in all kinds of sports all over the world for Olympic committees, federations, teams, organizations, special forces, wounded warriors, you name it. I'm blessed to be in it. So that puts me in a broader network of practitioners. So a lot of this research we're going to talk today is from gait analysis that's being done on wounded warriors, stroke patients, neurological disorders. Pioneering work that's way ahead of the game in terms of what we're doing in actual sprint analysis. I'm an old guy, so I got to put this in here. Sometimes the old guys weren't that far off. The classics. One of the best biomechanics books still out there is by Geoffrey Dyson, British researcher, taught at Oxford. First book was written in the late 50s. I think there's 7 or 8 editions. I read it every year. It's still true. Yeah, he's had to change a few chapters, like the high jump went from Western roll to flop, and pole vaulting went from steel pole to flexible poles. But the principles, the essentials of biomechanics are there. And I think trying to coach to a model or affect movement to a model without a fundamental understanding of biomechanics is fighting with one hand tied behind your back. So beware of these marketing and internet gurus and inferences, even in studies. Be careful with inferences. People infer things. If X, Y, and Z happen, therefore it must be this. Well, allopathic drugs, how many drugs are pulled from the market every year? Lots. How does a drug get to the market? Hypothesis, some trials, some animal trials, some human trials. It's about 10 years to get a drug to a market. And then 10 years on the market, they start seeing longitudinal stuff happening. They go, oops. How many people in here remember COX-2 inhibitors, pain meds? It was nirvana for 2 years, right? And then everybody started having kidney failure and all kinds of stuff. Oops. Be careful with the inferences. So is there a technical model? What's this called where you just self-organize and learn on your own? There's some term for it now. Like, why coach? Well, just let them play and figure it out. Well, we're here to speed up the learning curve, right? And to minimize damage in the learning process. So I think there's some common denominators in sprinting in terms of position, movement schemes and strategies, and vectors. So what do? We do a lot of intra and inter-athlete studies, and we do them longitudinally over time. So what's an inter-athlete study? So we look at the best men and women in grade school, in middle school, in high school, NCAA, world class, Asia, Europe, South America, Caribbean. Huge, diverse populations in all kinds of sports. Who are the fastest people in soccer, in the NFL, in the NBA? That's inter-athlete study. Are there some common positions, angles, vectors, movement schemes that these people execute? We call them good movers, right? Or fast people. Are there some common denominators, some essential things they're doing that ensure success? And does it hold up over time? That's the longitudinal piece. Logic, common sense, and above all, replicability. As you come up with ideas and concepts, if you have teaching models, paradigms that you operate in, always double check at the end of a cycle or end of a year debrief or whatever. Well, we're doing logical. There's some common sense. Dragging your foot is friction, right? Friction slows us down, right? But yeah, we got sprinters all over this country dragging their feet out of the blocks. Kind of fails the common sense logic test. Cue systems. A cue is a prompt. It can be internal, a body cue, external. It can be an analogy. There's a lot of research and science and debates, a lot of camps and cueing. Cues are like t-shirts. You try it on, see if it fits, feels good, you wear it. After a couple days, that shirt stinks. You got to take it off and put on a new one. Cues have shelf life. A cue that works in October may be useless in March. It may be white noise. A cue that works with beginners may fail with senior athletes. Big problem in sport, we're coaching youth to be elite too quick. We're using elite, advanced cues for 10-year-old kids. So feedback loops, cues, all big branches in motor behavior, motor learning. It requires deep study. So why should we even bother with coaching or coming up with a technical model? Well, cost benefit. If we change this, do we get faster? What are the timelines for change? Incubation period for change. Energy leaks. Where do we lose energy? Are there positions, are there movements that we're doing, or postures that are causing us to leak energy? What's the problem with energy leaks? We fatigue faster. We limit our options of biological source. We can promote chronic injury if we have chronic energy leaks. And over time, this chronicity can cause acute ACL ruptures, epidemic in female athletes in field and court sports. Why? It starts with energy leaks. Big Q angle, overweight, overdevelopment of certain muscle systems, underdevelopment of certain movement planes, boom, you've got a problem. So is there a new model of sprinting? So there's gurus out there and biomechanists and motor behaviorists. There's a new way to do things. So these are some examples. Tyson Gay, Kim Collins, who's still sprinting 10:0 at age 40, East Germans back in the 60s with Tommy Smith. All these people were fast, world record holders. So I'm a weird guy. I don't like to shop, my wife does, so I sit at the mall and I just watch people and go, oh, that's wrong, that's screwed up. I'm kind of looking in the audience. I'm watching how you sit, slump, back, legs crossed, arm up. I'm analyzing you all. That's just how my brain works. So even in Greek antiquity, yeah, I get the old Greek pictures and I measure angles and postures and axes. And so if we look at people like Marlene Otte, Wyoming Matthias, Carl, Don Corey, Allison, are these people really doing anything different? You guys know the guy in the top in the Ohio shirt. Some of the younger people might not. His name's Jesse Owens. So in 1936, he ran 10-2 on dirt, mud. They didn't have starting blocks. You had a bricklayer's trowel. You dug 2 holes in the ground. That was your starting block. He ran 10-2 in 1936. So all these biomechanists now, they got all these algorithms, and they can put him in real shoes. You know, those were leather shoes with spikes that were about 1 inch long, and they were heavy. And you can simulate a rubber track. And they estimate Jesse Owens would run 10-0 if he had modern stuff. 10-0 still puts you in the Olympic final. So how far have we come? Is there really a new model? He was 10-0. Guy jumped 26 feet in dirt. 26 feet still gets you in the Olympic final. So my question is there really a model? So this is a training group in South Africa, British. Old guys, young guys, injured guys, 100, 200. So we're looking, are there similarities in rhythm, synchronization, flow, harmony, positions? Yeah, there's bandwidth. You know, is the attack angle 36 degrees or 38? That's bandwidth. But you don't see any fast people stand straight up, and you don't see many fast people stay bent over for a reason. It violates kinesiology and biomechanics. So strategies. What do athletes do to gain speed? They leverage variables. They change variables to get faster. So we have lever systems, our arms and legs, our feet, and we have axes in the body, a longitudinal axis, a longitudinal foot axis, transverse shoulder axis, transverse hip axis. And so we manipulate how we move these levers in these axes to gain speed or to lose speed or to have energy leaks. Maybe we manipulate them wrongly. Joints are involved. So the joints are like wheels on a pulley. So like a block and tackle system. So my wrist is a wheel, my elbow's a wheel, my shoulder's a wheel. And the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and fascia are the ropes. So we manipulate the joints, and we set alarms to manipulate joint timing and movement and synchronization. Anybody in here familiar with alarm theory? Okay, we establish dynamic stereotypes through setting alarms. So if I'm a sprinter, when I block my hand in front, that's one alarm set. As I open the elbow and drive the arm back, as it passes my body, that's a second alarm. And when I block behind me, that's a third alarm. And so how we manipulate movement between those alarms is how we control and monitor movement. So if I'm doing a counter movement jump, as I lower when I hit bottom, where I change in direction, that's an alarm. And that triggers a sequence till I leave the ground. That's an alarm. So alarms can be influenced by fatigue, negative transference, interference from an opponent, like I'm getting hit while I try to jump. So how we manipulate those alarms allows us to have movement strategies. There's momentum factors. If I'm a free safety, do I want 3 steps before I blow up a receiver or 10? 10. Because of momentum. It's not just velocity, it's momentum also. We alter speed of limb movement. So if you have a youngster and you say, I want you to run fast, what do they generally do? Say a real young one, 6. They shorten levers and have all kinds of frequency, right? You go, oh, man, I'm really fast, but they're not going anywhere. They're like the Roadrunner running in place. So they failed in this movement strategy. So world-class sprinters, to move faster, they still hit those alarms. They just move through it faster. They find ways to hit those key points, kinematic points, by altering movement strategies. A big place advanced athletes manipulate speed is during what we call the support phase. So when we contact the ground in sprinting, the foot is supinated and we land generally on the ball of the foot. As we're coming to mid-stance, 5 toes touch the ground. The heel sinks. It actually touches the ground in most sprinters, even at top speed. And then we pronate off. So we call that the support phase. So athletes will do things during that support phase to influence ground contact time, which feeds into their ability to run fast or slow. So when you see beginners that are running real slow, what's their contact time like? Forever. And when you see a real fast person, you see a change in contact time. Now the problem with simple biomechanics is we use algebraic expression to explain it, and it's wrong. So how many people have heard of the impulse formula? So it says the harder you throw something, the faster it gets off the ground, the more return you have. And that's why everybody's locked up in this stiffness chase. Oh, we got to be stiffer, so hit the ground harder and faster and all that. But the human body is a series of springs and couples. There's a unique amount of time you need to be on the ground for you to express your skills and abilities. I coach 3 long jumpers that are all 8 meter plus. One's an Olympic champion, one's a silver medalist of the world champs, another's an international finalist. One guy's off the board super quick. One guy's on the board for 5 days. You could go to the bathroom, come back, he still hasn't taken off. And the third guy's somewhere in the middle, but they're all Olympic class long jumpers. So that's the danger of inferences of using algebraic math in 3-dimensional differential equation movement. So ground support. Flight phase. What do we do in the air? We reposition limbs to apply force again. So we need a unique relationship between ground contact and flight time. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul, and it's just like stride length and stride frequency. Good accelerators, each stride gets longer, each stride gets quicker. Contact times lessen each step, flight times increase each step. Those are 4 things you can hang your hat on. Study any sport, any level of sport, good movers address those fundamental principles. So they're manipulating support phase and flight phase. When we look at world-class sprinters, when they come out of the blocks, they're on the ground twice as long as they're in the air. So it's a 2-to-1 relationship. As they're transitioning to upright, that relationship changes to 1-to-1. However long they're on the ground, they're in the air the same amount. But when they're at top speed, they're in the air 1.6 longer than they're on the ground. So the best people are manipulating support and flight phases to influence speed development. And pathways of the limbs and CFG. When we are good movers, when we're fast, the center mass undulates as we run. It's a sinoid property. The limbs have to go through certain pathways of movement. You don't see any 100-meter finalists running with their arms side to side, do you? There's a pathway that they move their arms through to counterbalance the action of the legs and to help support weak force development into the ground. So what do we watch? What do we cue? So through our inter-athlete study, we know things like what's their gender, their training age, the culture they're in, their evolution. We're studying diverse athletes in a lot of sports, with a lot of variance. Inter-athlete study. So we look at an individual athlete. What are they doing when they run fast? What do they do when they run poorly? What happens when the weather changes? What kinematic factors are changing and as they evolve as an athlete? So we study the event history and the evolution. So back there on those photo sequences, it's my contention there isn't a new model of sprinting. People have been running fast for forever. As technology changes, as training changes, people get minutely faster, but the basic fundamental biomechanics haven't really changed. So we use a lot of film, studies, interviews, reports, text, and books. This has been a 45-year journey. So in seeing motion, can you see it in real time? And this is a problem. Why are people really sold on this foot drag? Because it's easy to see. Seeing some of these other things, you need training. So I think everybody, there's a lot of skewedness in here to S&C, right? Everybody in here has a model for each weight room exercise, and you can see it, right? But if we take you out on the field and have you analyze sprinters, are you as good? You can't see in real time. You don't have a model that you're teaching to, you haven't done the research, you haven't done the hours of film study, your eye's untrained. On general field work, hurdle mobility, medicine ball work, so on and so forth. Do you have a model for correct? Can you see that model in real time? That's where we have to head. If not, then stop action. Can you film it? Stop it, look frame by frame. Once you can see some of these key kinematic factors and stop action, can you do it at various speeds? Half speed, 3/4 speed, full speed. Reverse action. How many people in here watch video reverse? A few pioneers. Why? Because we have forward bias. Like you're watching this guy for hours, you go, I don't see it. There's something wrong. I just can't see it. Run it in reverse. Maybe you'll see it. If you understand the movement pathways, movement expression, running in reverse unclutters the bias that the ocular brain connection is built and developed over time. Perspectives. Pet peeve of mine, especially in weight rooms. Where do you watch the lift? Where do you stand? On the field, where do you stand? During the game, where do you stand? You can see things on a frontal view right now. You can't see anything that's going on behind me, can you? Now you can see a lot of stuff back here, but you can't see here. Sides, you can see certain things. Human body's three-dimensional, right? Do you look from above? There is a z-axis. So like early research in the hammer throw with two-dimensional study, cameras behind, side, head on, it wasn't adding up. We're doing the math. They go, this guy just threw 75 meters, but the data says he should have only thrown 70. Like, our math can't be that bad. Well, somebody put a camera above, and we started seeing how athletes drop in single support, stand up and double, that there's energy contribution in the z-axis, and then we add it all together and go, oh, that's how they throw that far. So what are your perspectives for analyzing movement? And don't take this as criticism. This is just, I'm an auditor. I go in and around the world and audit what people are doing, and this is a major failure. So this is a British sprinter, 200 internationalist, Olympian, European medalist, British record holder, really advanced guy. And he came to us when I was working in the UK. 2 years he couldn't train. 2 years. Hadn't raced or trained in 2 years. Bilateral Achilles tendonitis. Couldn't get out of the car. Here's how he walked out of the car into the training center. He was 30 years old. He'd been all over the world. He'd seen specialists. He'd had injections. He'd had surgery. 2 years. he was in it, like he was spending crazy money trying to get answers. Hyperbaric chambers, isometric loading, eccentric loading, rubber bands, Swiss balls, all this voodoo shit. Nothing was working. So we knew him from, I've been in the sprint business a long time. He came up, Dan, can you help? Like, I'm out of options. Sure. So we started working, and we're a what else, where else group. Yeah, we're using technology. We got OptiJumps out. We're ground contact, flight time. We got cameras on the side all over the place. We've got a drone above. We're not getting a lot of answers. And so we changed film speed. We went super slow motion. This is 300 frames a second. All right, what I want you to watch is when he's in the blocks, I want you to look at the heel counter of the shoe, the little donut around the heel of the shoe. All right? I want you to look at the movement path of the heel, and then what happens to the heel when he hits the ground. So it hits. You see that wobble? That's an energy leak. Externally rotated foot. It's not getting better, is it? You add speed to a dysfunctional setup, it gets worse. Are you in pain yet? So well-meaning people, they were doing therapy and exercise on his foot, on his ankle, on the retinaculum, tarsal tunnel, sinus tarsi, rays, cuneiforms, talus, calcaneus, cuboid, flexor, digitorum minimi, lower leg. They were working everything. Nothing. So what else? Where else? Well, we're looking at hips. We're looking at knees. We're looking at back. All over the place. And we were making progress. Could train 2 or 3 days a week. Other days we had to do therapy and just back off. So we weren't happy. So we dug even deeper. Christian, anywhere in your life, car wreck, fell out of a tree, girlfriend hit you with a frying pan, anything, concussions, we were looking everywhere. Yeah, when I was 11, I was playing rugby. He's from Wales. And I dislocated my shoulder, and I went to the side, and coach pulled it, put it back in. And I said, so did you have x-rays or anything? No. Did you have therapy? No. I was 12, no money. Just rub dirt on it and go. So I want you to now watch the film. He's got a dry fit shirt, which is really cool because it mimics fascial patterns in the spine. So I want you to watch how the shirt distorts, and I want you to really focus in on where the left shoulder is and what the left shoulder is doing. See the fascia in the shirt? So where's his left shoulder going? Almost out of the lane line, right? See the listing of the shoulder axis. Compare it to what the hip axis is doing, and then how the spine is compensating and how he's trying to correct just to stay in his lane. So as soon as we fixed the shoulder, no Achilles problems. 6 months later, silver medal European champs. Hadn't trained in 2 years. So perspective matters. And so does what else, where else. So for me, acceleration mechanics is a complex skill set. Depends on your starting and stopping positions. So we have starting on the move, stationary starts, changing direction starts, but it is a skill. Would an NBA basketball player go months without shooting? Would a PGA golfer go months without hitting a golf ball? But we still have programs that don't excel or work speed all year long. It's a skill. If you want to get better at it, you have to practice it. So for us, it sets sets up in the blocks. I'm not a fan of where his feet are. There's a guy at our center in Arizona. But we look at things like, what is the front knee angle? What is the rear knee angle? Height of the hip axis compared to the shoulder axis. I don't like this lean here. Are the arms perpendicular to the ground? Is there dorsiflexion of the toe and ankle? What kind of stretch is set up on the posterior chain? What's the thigh to chest angle? What's the angle of the head through the spine? So what are cervical, thoracic, and vertebrae doing? So it starts with the setup. If they're set up wrong, they're wrong. I just spent time working with NFL combine guys, and you talk about setup disasters. And there's gurus. I'm at the combine watching guys try to get set, and I mean, it's a shit show because people don't understand physics or balance. So this was the old days. Head up, neck crunched, hip shoulders almost level, front knee angle pretty damn close, back knee angle, no pressure at all on the back block. Again, he didn't even dig holes in the ground. So we've improved a little bit, but we're still a lot of monkey see, monkey do. So everybody's got their head up. Like there hadn't been an earthquake there in 200 years. What are they looking for? That's because the best guy was doing it. Everybody's got to do it, right? So one of the big things that we look for and measure is symmetry. Where are these limb positions at key moments? So this is what we call the line of attack or line of projection, and the free leg shin angle should be somewhat parallel to it. The forearm should have symmetry to the lines of attack. So if you can't see that in real time, can you stop the film and see that? So what would happen if this lower leg had already swung out? Well, that tells me they projected too low, they're over-rotating, they're trying to catch themselves. So this is one of our starters film this week, just looking at some of those factors. So this guy came to us, he was taught to have his head, chin in his chest, bent over at the waist and run like hell the first 20. And so as a result, he's getting a lot of hamstring injuries, a lot of adductor injuries, so that's why he came to us, try to get healthy. So this is in process of him getting away from some bad behavior towards more effective behavior with less energy leaks and chronic injuries. So what happens if we have unique beginning positions? So we have collisions, tumble, slides. We get it in a lot of different positions. Field and court sport, a lot of times athletes walking or they're jogging and then they got to go. The principles still hold up. No matter what your starting position or your starting speed, these principles still adhere. So this is a baseball player, North Carolina. I know the strength coach here. I said, do you guys work on this? He goes, like, absolutely. So pretty nice line of attack. Free leg, lower leg in line with the line of attack. Arm split for balance. Rugby guy, one of the best rugby guys. AFL football, I'm sorry. Australia. Line of attack. So, what do we practice? Movement expression in a variety of environments. Prone start, supine, sideline, single knee, double knee. Bumping people. Decelerate radically into accelerate. Starts with different kinematic factors coming in and out of them. But the principles, these landmarks, these kinematic landmarks, looking at axes, ground contact time, flight time, limb pathway repositioning, still adhere. So what are some KPIs? The spine and the hip are the engine, so we're monitoring that. We're looking at joint and muscle order. So if I do a counter movement jump, hips fire instantly faster than the knees, and then the ankles are last, so we're looking at joint and muscle order. Angles of projection and force. Rate of force development is a hot topic. But research by Morin in France, our friends in Japan, Weyen at SMU, Clark in Pennsylvania, Hoke and Anderson in Sweden, movement expression oftentimes trumps rate of force development. You can be strong as hell, you can apply it in a really quick period of time, but if it's at the wrong angle or for the wrong duration, it doesn't matter. So it was great listening to the talk earlier. You know, how strong? Strong enough. Does this force application paradigm transfer to the sport? Is it efficient for the athlete before us? There's a lot of variables that you go through. Stride rate of change. So if I'm accelerating 10 yards, 20, 40, or running 100 meters, the rate of change changes for tasks. So the acceleration pattern for an offensive lineman and how you practice and what you work on would differ than a 100-meter sprinter. Because a 100-meter sprinter has to have a unique rate of acceleration where an offensive lineman probably is going to hit somebody within a few steps. So we talked about stride frequency and stride length, the harmony. Each stride gets longer, each stride gets quicker, uniformly. The rhythm is staccato, bump, 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 bump. But while that's happening, each stride's getting longer, each stride's getting quicker. You don't rob Peter to pay Paul. So the two big errors, people, a lot of frequency, no stride length, or they over push and they under frequency. That's the harmony, that's the puzzle that you have to figure out before you. Total body access to the ground. So when we start and apply a lot of force, if it's stationary start, generally 45 degrees. Remember our science experiment with the cannon? What's the maximum projectile angle? So 45 is your theoretical. Now most world-class sprinters are 37, 36 to 40 because they have huge skill and power. But a 10-year-old girl just learning to run, maybe her attack angle is 60 degrees because that's all she's got. That's all she can handle. Each step, that angle changes. Lean is a product of force. How hard and our time on the ground influences the angle of attack. If we push for too long, we over-rotate and we attack at too low of an angle. If we don't push long enough, we stand up. So we have to figure out that moment. How long and at what angle do we push to have an effective body access to the ground? Appendage positions and transitions, ground contact, amortization, and flight time. So as we said, when we land on the ground and supinate, the body actually yields. It amortizes at mid-stance, and the hip, knee, and ankle angles are congruent. And so today in the Learn by Do, I'm going to talk about some plyometric stuff that we think teaches vertical force awareness and production and this amortization principle. So athletes spend time on the ground, they amortize, and then they're in flight. We've got to become familiar with those factors. So here's a guy you know, see the angle of attack. He's around 40 degrees. So if you draw a line from the ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, head to the ground, that's about 40 degrees. Free leg in relation to it. Allison Felix, a little bit weaker than the guy before, not as powerful. So her attack angle's a little less, isn't it? A little broken at the waist for my taste. Here's my hero, 80 years old, German champion, indoors, 200 meters, world record holder. Are you starting to see the common denominators? This guy's 83. Okay, the knee hasn't totally extended. Why? Well, us old guys know our hamstrings just won't do that, right? But that's pretty close. Field day in England. So we got the girl closest to us, block, spike, she's fired up, she's ready to go. Girl next to her, never run a race in her life, and the girl on the inside, coach told her, just stay low. But there are some common denominators there, right? None of them are 20 degrees. None of them are at 90 degrees of attack. Indoor field, this girl, I loved her. Man, she's got her color-coordinated socks to her top, got the stripes matched. I talked to her, I said, you ever run track? Nope, first time. Nobody's ever coached her. These guys don't practice starts. But you see one guy kind of leading the pack? Why? Because his attack angle's taking advantage of what forces he can produce. So it's projectile physics. It's an Olympic final. So you notice those attack lines. So they're somewhere, the bandwidth is 36 to about 40 degrees, that attack angle. Notice too, the shoe coming off the foot, off the front block. All the soles of the shoe are vertical, aren't they? They don't over-plantar flex the ankle. So there's this ambiguous term called triple extension. Taken to the max, that means you've fully extended your hip, your knee, and your ankle, right? No fast people triple extend. They have a controlled interrelated extension. So if we look at the hip, any of these guys, the drive hip, it's not fully extended. The knee, and some guys, is close to fully extended, but not fully extended. And definitely not the ankle. A common denominator in block starts is the foot comes off with the sole of the foot vertical. Those are landmarks, those are KPIs that you can lock into. Different view. What do you see this girl in this lane? What stands out to you? Not a great spine setup, is it? Would you see that standing behind her or in front? Nope. Side? Nope. Only from the z-axis. So where is your perspective of analysis? Block clearance. So we're looking at what's the angle of the lower leg, the dorsiflexion of the foot, ankle, the arm split, head position. This is a step into it. So who's the highest attack angle in this photo? Who won? So much for that stay low shit, huh? The guy in lane 5, he's staying low, and he's grinding his ass off. He's dead last. Case study of 1, sorry. Women, step into it. Do you see the commonality there? You don't see any female with the lower leg casted out or anybody standing straight up. Unfortunately, you see quite a few with broken at the hip, but there are some common denominators going on here. Second step. So now we're starting to see some lower leg swing. That's a mistake. Why? Because they're staying down too long. They're over pushing in the ground. They're over rotating. So that leg swings out to catch them. So what happens at top end? Well, we're looking at postures, where we strike on the ground. Generally in upright, you want the lower leg to strike perpendicular. If it's obtuse, that's blocking. If it's acute, you're going to over-rotate. Well, we pound people, we do 5 a.m. workouts, and we do boot camp stuff, mental strength, got to get them tough. What are they practicing? Patella in front of the malleolus, a negative shin angle. Right? Billions of reps. Well, what's the brain storing? Acute shin angles. Angulation factors. So the foot comes off the ground, the knee folds, foot dorsey, ankle dorsey. When it blocks, transfers momentum, foot swings, we come back down. There's a movement pathway there. So we call that angulation. Dorsiflex, that's cocking of the foot and the ankle to create a spring-like attack, to apply elastic energy to aid efficiency. Hip-shoulder axis undulation and oscillation. How many of us were taught run with your elbows 90 degrees? It's bullshit. Might be okay starting spot, for real young kids, but in fact, real fast people don't do that. They angulate. Why? This knee is angulating, isn't it? It's flexing and opening. So the opposite arm has to flex and open to stay counterbalanced. Good sprinters, when you block, this shoulder's higher than this shoulder and it's further advanced. This hip's higher than the support hip and it's further advanced. When we switch, the opposite happens. So the transverse shoulder axis undulates and oscillates as we sprint. The hip axis does too, and an opposite phasing. If that's done right, the rotation should be in the lower thoracic spine. If the arm angulation is timing up with the leg angulation, the rotation will be in the lower thoracic. If we run like Kenyan distance runners or with 90 degrees and the leg's angulating, that'll shift that fulcrum down into the lumbar. We get tight backs and tight hamstrings. It's because the arms are not counterbalancing and timing up with what the legs are doing. So world-class sprinters, when they block, the thumb's above the acromion process. As they start their downward-backward movement, the elbow opens. When that arm passes their body, the arm's straight. You see mid-stance pictures of sprinters, both arms, it looks like they're standing at attention. As it passes the body, it reflexes and blocks, so sprinters drive down and back, and then it rebounds forward. The elbow is angulating. We're swinging from the shoulder. It's not rigid. If I'm rigid, I'll oscillate a lot, but I won't undulate. So there's a relationship of horizontal to vertical force production. If all I'm doing is oscillating, I'm going to overuse horizontal and underuse vertical. When you see fast people, it looks like they're kangaroos. They're not running like this. Ground contact, flight time, joint stiffness. Drives me mad. How many people have heard this, read this, exploring this? Hot topic. All you young guys probably wearing it out. What controls a joint? The movement about a joint. What are the biological, architectural factors? Tendons, ligaments, muscles, muscle systems, bursa, fat pads, fluid, retinaculums. A lot of things affect that joint. So if we're doing plyometrics to get the tendon stiffer, we've left out most of the orchestra, haven't we? It fails the logic test. Direction of force application. This is movement signature. Are you applying force in the right direction at the right moment for the right amount of time? And then how do we reposition the limbs in order to apply force again? So these are some of the things. This was just a lower body analysis. So where are the positions, the angles, the strike point? So you can see his strike point is a bit obtuse. He's blocking there. So we measure things at toe off, like what are the elbow angles, where are the hands, what's the knee angles, what's the foot height, foot angles. Maximum vertical projection, that's the middle of the parabolic flight curve. Pre-strike, touchdown, full support. So you can see in full support, you see the amortization, how the hip, knee, and ankle are given. So how many of us were taught, get on the balls of your feet and stay tall? It's bullshit. What are they doing? The foot supinates when we land on the ball of the foot, and then as we plant the 5 toes, the heel sinks so that the talus and calcaneus can mobilize, and you put stretch on things. Then we pronate off. Is his heel on the ground there? This guy's a 9.9 sprinter. So I'm not trying to sell you used cars here, guys. This is EMG data. Like, we're putting cells and seeing what muscles work when and how they work on a fast run versus a slow run. Anybody know this cat? Kenyan 800-meter runner, David Rudisha, world record holder. Blows people away at the end of races. Why? Because he hits positions. Is his elbow 90 degrees in the front? Is it 90 degrees in the back? No. There's a girl I work with in Scotland. She's in medical school. Back injuries galore for years. Talked to her about her arms. Went from 204 to 201 in 3 months. Nothing changed in her program. Just figured out how to use her arms better. Back pain went away. Airtime. Jenny Simpson, Olympic medalist in the mile. Is there flight time here? It amazed me, distance coaches, you read all their studies, running economy is one of the first 5 things they talk about. Well, what are you doing about running economy? Oh, it's not that big a deal. It is that big a deal. People that run fast have a unique relationship with time on the ground and time in the air. So this is about 300 meters before the finish, but is there air time there? So bolts in the white. So you can see how the elbows angulate. See as it passes his body, how the elbow is almost fully extended. You can see the hip and shoulder axes undulating and oscillating in these guys. Running out of time. So this is a girl, 14 years old, work with in Australia, a hurdler. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of practicing blocks. So if you set upright, you push at the right angle, you don't need 10,000 hours of practice. I mean, people heard that 10,000 rule. That's bullshit too. That's 2 weeks of practice. There's no way you get 10,000 hours. Like, even if she's staying awake at night on Red Bull, she's not getting mental rehearsal for 10,000 hours. So this is a Paralympian that I worked with, Johnny Peacock, Britain, 2-time Olympic, Paralympic champion. Came to us when he was 19. PR was 11:42, I think. That year he ran 10:70, broke the world record. Below the knee amputee. If you have sound principles, they're universal. So set up, the attack angle. Now with his problem, he didn't know how to flex the knee on the prosthesis side, so we had to do a lot of cueing and experimenting. So if you look at the angle of the able side and how it flexes and those angles, and then on the prosthetic side it was off. When we got those knee angles pretty close, that's when he broke the world record. But the principles are the principles. The attack angles changing each step, contact times lessening each step, flight times increasing each step. The arms are angulating. Similarities. Yeah, there's some bandwidth, but there's a lot of similarities. We look at thigh to chest angles. So how closed is the thigh to chest? The flight time we talked about. So who's got the best flight time in that photo? Who won? Is the foot dorsiflexed? You can see their spike plate. They're not pointing their toes and reaching, are they? So I talked to both of these girls. I said, did your coach ever talk to you about arms? Nope. Pretty good though, huh? What angle is the thigh at displacement? Is Aries Merritt, Olympic champion, world record holder in the hurdles. His attack angle is not 40. It's a little bit higher. Why? Because he has to be totally upright in 6 steps. He's 7 steps to the first hurdle. So he's got to attack higher and change quicker than a sprinter. That's that rate of acceleration that we were talking about earlier. This guy in my area, I live in Texas, double league, led the AA in bases stolen and doubles. I asked him after a game, did you run track where you coached? Nope. Compare him to the sprinters we were looking at. It's pretty similar, right? This is my neighbor, son. Dad wants him to go to Stanford. Dan, coaching, please. We got to get this scholarship. I say he's not ready for coaching. He's doing stuff pretty well. I think I'd just screw this up. So some of those angles and attacks, is he hitting those? Is he dorsiflexed? I asked this guy, so how did you learn to do that with your arms? He goes, I watch Carl Lewis YouTube videos. Visual learner. So what are the teaching imperatives? See landmark positions and actions during ground contact and in flight. Identify, we call errors or energy leaks viruses. Identify the worst virus and attack it first. Why? Because in experience, sorry about that. If you find the key virus, you'll probably wipe out a bunch of other ones. So we have to get better at identifying these viruses. What do we cue? Is it internal, external, rhythm, awareness, mass versus distributive? The problem with private sectors, we want to look like we're engaged and we're really smart, and so we're giving feedback every rep, every movement, right? But we know from education, pedagogy, there's mass versus distributive needs. Do you give feedback every third attempt, fifth attempt? Some of the world-class jumpers I have, I don't give them feedback at all during a jump session till after, because I want to see how they problem solve, what they've hung on to, what is the trend in error that day. So we need to dig down into some of that research, I think. Time specifics, phases, cycles, years. Do you have cues? You should have a cue library just like you have an exercise inventory. Age, sport specific, time of year, gender. So there's some cues that I can use with male anatomical parts that really drive home a message. But to a female, like, what? So we have to categorize a lot of these cues for the population. So the essence is, can we detect errors and can we come up with solutions for correction? Drills. Drills give you context. They don't transfer. Same with teaching progressions. So a pole vaulter, when they plant the pole and hit the box, 7 times their body weight going through their spine, right? What are you going to do on a Swiss ball or in the weight room that'll replicate that? You have to pole vault. 4 steps, get the spine strong. 6 steps, get a little stronger. 8 steps. There's nothing we can do away from the pole vault pit specificity to bulletproof the spine other than doing the task. Alarm theory, we talked about spatial awareness. Are they aware of their body parts, their center of mass in space? Some people, especially your artistic types, are temporally biased. So rhythm and temporal cues make a lot more sense than spatial cues. I know there's debate on learning types or drivers, but I'm going to go with it. Like I got guys that are visual learners. I'm not going to fight City Hall. What are their drivers? Implicit, explicit, materialistic, narcissistic, paranoid, OCD. What are the drivers? That'll influence your cueing. Environmental factors. What's going on in the environment? Really insecure, OCD, defensive person, you may not want to introduce a new skill to them in a group setting. Negative transference. When women's pole vault just came around in the 90s, most of the early adapters were gymnasts and divers. Why? Because risk-taking, kind of crazy, had body control. But how do gymnasts run? Right? Now try carrying a pole and not die running like that. That's a negative transfer. And fatigue. What happens? Cognitive perceptual maps under fatigue. What changes kinematically and what do we have to change with cues as fatigue? A cue that works on the first 3 sets may be useless on set 12. Right? Big error as a young coach, I was good at these first two. I'd stimulate and allow an athlete to adapt, and then we were on to the next chapter. Through the school of hard knocks, and a lot of failures and tears, I realized there's two other steps on that ladder. How long and what do we do for that new activity or movement scheme to stabilize, to get in there and they get comfortable with it? And then the final test, can they actualize it in any setting? Fresh, tired, early in the cycle, late in the cycle, bad weather, good weather. That's a perceptual grid whenever you're changing movement dynamics that I think we have to filter information through. So wrapping up real quick, I think through the school of experience, we've found acceleration sets up speed, speed sets up speed endurance. Those are compatible and complementary. So generally we do high neural demand early, then we shift to power, then we shift to strength. Work capacity is the order of ergonomics. One last rant before I wrap up. I like the term work capacity as opposed to building a base. How many people were brought up with this base myth? Got to build a base, right? Fall training, we got to build a base. A base of what? So I'm on social media because I have to be, and high jumpers in the fall. Great workout, I just did 10 300s, I'm smashed. I'm like, you're a world-class high jumper. You take 10 steps and jump. That's 30 yards, and you jump. And you jump 10 times in an hour in a meet. Why are you running 300s? With bad posture, terrible speeds. How is this developing? The work capacity a high jumper needs is to be able to take more high jumps and to run faster at the bar. Those are the capacities we have to develop. So I'll end on that. When you are building capacities, ask yourself, what capacities are we building here? Somehow this myth got started that if we train real general capacities, it'll support specific capacities. And that's a lie. Data doesn't support that. All right, thanks for your time. I'm around all weekend if you have questions.